Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another live stream, and thank you so much for tuning in to another show. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu just made another declaration about a formation of a new axis that Israel is forming now, something newer than before. We know that Israel already has an alliance with many countries, and we have an idea who these countries are, a pretty good idea. But recently he made a statement about a new alliance that Israel is forming all across the globe. And we're trying to understand what he really means by that. So isn't the main ally of Israel the United States of America? And if so, why is Netanyahu looking for other alliances? Is there something happening between Israel and the United States, or is Israel projecting that there's going to be a certain change in the United States based on the growing sentiment that is against Israel in the United States of America? We're going to talk all about this and about the real deal, what's really happening with Israel. Why are they calling for this new alliance, and why also are they talking about the establishment of an axis now from the Sunni side? Because they previously used to speak about the Shia axis, right? And all of these axes. Let's try and understand what Netanyahu is talking about exactly. And I'm going to tell you the real story behind all of this. So this was the report about Benjamin Netanyahu. Netanyahu is saying that Modi's visit, Narendra Modi, the Indian leader, is part of an effort to create alliance against radical Sunni and Shiite axis. I thought there was only one Shiite axis, right? Although when it was a Shiite axis, it had Sunnis, but Netanyahu was trying to play this divide and rule game of, Sunni against the Shia and what have you. But now there's clearly something. Yesterday we shared the video of Naftali Bennett, the previous Israeli prime minister, who is likely to be the next prime minister too, warning from Turkey and the emergence of this Sunni axis from other Muslim countries against Israel. Israel is showing paranoia from this. And indeed, there are changes on the ground. There are political changes. There are political developments, not only on the borders with occupied Palestine, but in the region as a whole. And that is primarily due to the Israeli genocide and expansionism that is fully backed by the regime of Donald Trump in the region. But the real story here is the fact that Benjamin Netanyahu is playing a game here and trying to downplay what's really happening or hide it altogether. The fact of the matter is, ladies and gentlemen, there is no Shia axis, there is no Sunni axis. There is a global axis. We have two camps today in the world. And these camps are the resistance camp that is standing against oppression, evil, genocide, supremacy, and the Zionist and evil axis that is primarily represented by Zionism and everything that it represents. And in those two axes, we have people from different backgrounds. You have Muslims on the resistance side, Muslims on the Zionist side. There are Jews on the resistance side, Jews on the Zionist side, Christians, likewise atheists and other backgrounds too. But the greater picture that Benjamin Netanyahu wants to hide is the level of popular support coming to the resistance front against Israel. We're talking about a global movement here. We are talking about something that is changing the way people are viewing Israel first and foremost, and then their own governments. This isn't about one religious group. The Zionists always want to deflect. They'll always tell you, oh, the Muslims are threatening the Christian world and Europe, and why? So that they can have this clash and not talk about the chosen ones, because it would be anti-Semitic to talk about them. This false terminology and attempts to intimidate people so that they don't criticize the state of Israel. We're not talking about certain axes here that belong to a certain country, or this is a global movement that's happening, and there is no denying that the Israelis are very worried about that, primarily in the United States. Which leads me to the second point here. Netanyahu in his comments list was talking about India, of course, Narendra Modi, although India recently just had a public position against the attempts of Israel to annex the West Bank, in a departure from the hardline pro-Zionist group that they usually take, and more in line with international calls. Okay, not the United States administration, but the United States administration, it is the side that builds the Israeli settlements. The Israeli squatting establishments in the West Bank, Mike Huckabee said there are over 700,000 Americans who are in Israel. Criminals from multiple parts of the United States, rapists, pedophiles, go there and get supported by the country, and they'll tell you about supremacy and we own the land and all of these rights. And Mike Huckabee then later on says, well, why don't you take the whole Middle East? Netanyahu is doing that to try and project that Israel has some sort of a potential. The fact of the matter is, Israel is viewed as a pariah entity, and more countries are moving further away from Israel. Countries that had potential to have a deal with Israel, such as, for example, Saudi Arabia, are very far off from that position at the moment. In the Arab world, hardly anyone shows sympathy to them, even with the establishments that are very close to the United States of America. And that's why Netanyahu is saying now the axis, the Sunni axis, right? Why? Because there's a genuine change happening in these countries, regardless of this terminology, because the sectarian terminology serves evil powers. People need to remember that. Sectarian tone, racist tone, that serves them, because it further instills division between people. The problem that people have with Zionism isn't a problem against Jewish people. Likewise, it isn't only a group of people that has a problem with Zionism. It's a global problem, because they represent the epitome of apartheid and evil and barbaric actions. The Epstein files, what has been released from the Epstein files, showed very clearly that we are talking about Satanists here who perform rituals and sacrifice infants. Pedophile rings from all across the world, run by groups within the Western establishment, fully complicit with it. And the main man running it is an Israeli asset. So is his partner, Ghislaine Maxwell, running an operation that Israel installed the cameras for. Installing the cameras in the apartments, installing cameras on the island, installing cameras in all sorts of places. And who's the man that installed them? Rafi from the Israeli consulate, according to the wife of the previous Israeli Prime Minister, Ehud Barak. But all of that, according to Israel, is anti-Semitic tropes. Why? Because they're really trying very hard to try and save whatever's left, to a level where Netanyahu himself, I mean, any person who would view this recent statement that he had would see a threat here, threatening Western establishments. Let's listen to one of his recent speeches and what he had to say exactly, so we can comment on it and let you guys know.
I said, Mike, that we are fighting today the battle that the Maccabees fought. They fought for the survival of the Jewish people and the Jewish faith against an enemy that wanted to extinguish us, wipe us out from the face of the earth. We were fighting our battle, but we were also fighting the battle of civilization, because our civilization is based on the Judeo-Christian tradition. And if the Maccabees had failed, there'd be no Judaism, there would be no Judeo-Christian civilization. There would be no Maccabees. There would be no United States, there wouldn't be the civilization of freedom, the respect for our common traditions, our common values. All of that would not happen if it weren't for those 5 brave brothers. They actually made the whole difference. So that spirit animates these brave soldiers that are here today and their comrades who are fighting in Gaza or in Lebanon or in Iran, wherever is necessary to not only preserve the Jewish nation and the Jewish state, but preserve civilization against the barbarians. The barbarians are out there. They did a horrible thing to us on October 7th. They'll never do it again. But they're doing it against Jews in Sydney and Jews elsewhere in America and elsewhere. This is our common battle against the barbarians. We have won it here. We're winning it here. We'll win it everywhere. Chag Sameach. Chag.
What is that apart from a direct threat? Without us, there would be no United States. Without us, there would be no Huckabee. I mean, Huckabee wouldn't even be born. Or would he be born and Israel would take him down? What is it exactly? What kind of an arrogance is that? That's coming as part of a series coming from this maniac, war criminal, lunatic, threatening his closest allies. The other day he had a video saying that if you don't take the necessary action to stop anti-Semitism, then there will be consequences. What is that exactly? Now, how does that correlate to the alliance that Israel is now forming with supposedly India and other countries too? In recent months, as a matter of fact, in the past couple of years, there have been more voices in Israel talking about the need, firstly, to be self-reliant in terms of weapons, in terms of development, so that they can avoid the shock of the United States all of a sudden abandoning them for any reason. Because like we said, the American sentiment is anti-Israeli, is anti-Zionist. And if that sentiment continues to grow, there will be an American president or an American administration at one point, inevitably, who is against Zionism. And Israel has to prepare for that day. So it's not only that they wanted to have this self-reliance that they were talking about. Netanyahu also said that they need to be super Sparta and they shouldn't be relying on anyone. As a matter of fact, at one point he compared the United States to Rome. And now they're saying that there's this alliance going on because there are multiple figures in the Israeli establishment who said that we need to form coalitions with other countries too. Oh, that's fine. We'll go to India. We'll go to Asia. Okay. So there is a level of worry here. And you'd think, why are they worried with such an Israeli supporting administration in the United States of America? Well, it's because the sentiment of the American people and the inevitability of that sentiment being in the administration or in leading figures at one point, probably in the near future, because the trend isn't going to their favor. They might buy an influencer, they might buy a network, someone might change their opinion, but the fact of the matter is they're immediately grilled by the same people who are listening to them or have been for their views that oppose Zionism and the evil that it represents, not only in Palestine, but in the United States, in Europe, and in other countries too. Netanyahu spoke about certain allies that he did not want to disclose now. He said, it's not the time to disclose the names of these allies that will be participating with us in this axis against the Sunni-Shia axis, right? Again, another deflection, because the axis against Israel, like I said, is a global axis. There are two camps in the world today, formed out of people from multiple races and faiths and backgrounds: the resistance camp that has all of these people, and the Zionist camp. And from a numbers perspective, the resistance is much bigger. But the big problem here is that the power lies in the hands of the evil. That's where the good side needs to understand the game that these people are playing. He spoke about certain Arab countries that he didn't want to name. I mean, really and truly, what Arab countries? If you're saying that they're creating this new axis against us, then who do you have left? The UAE? Bahrain? What are they going to do? And how are they relevant in terms of real influence on the ground and the prospect of implementing Israel's ambitions in the region? We're seeing what's happening in all of the fronts where some of the Arab countries are dealing with Israel to fulfill its ambitions, quashed by other countries that Israel claimed it wants to have relationships with. There was something interesting that happened simultaneously with this statement of Benjamin Netanyahu. There was a move coming from several militias talking about uniting against Iran. Iraq-based Kurdish Iranian parties to defy the Islamic Republic. Of course, the Kurdistan area in Iraq, it has a level of autonomy, and some opposition groups might be operating from there. The reality is Iran has many ethnicities, many religions, and it's been like that for a very long time. And the Kurdish population is embedded in Iran. It's a natural part of Iran, like it is a natural part of the region. But of course, there are some who are for, some who are against. Why did they do it now, simultaneously with the statement of Netanyahu? Well, it's because Netanyahu wants to have a translation. Netanyahu wants to have a translation on the ground, a tangible threat that he can pose with against Iran and show them that, look, even when you thought that we didn't have any more leverage, for example, internally, we have other groups too. Why is he doing that? Well, they have been defeated heavily internally in Iran. The Mossad rats were eliminated by the Iranian authorities. They allowed Starlink to operate for a period of time. They catch the remaining ones. They quashed the riots that were orchestrated by Israel and the United States administration. And then the millions started going out in support of the country in general and against these rioters who tried to hijack the legitimate protests that were there for economic purposes against certain economic moves made by the government that the government actually addressed inside of Iran. Then many people started to get really upset with Donald Trump at the time because they viewed this as a golden opportunity, as a very good opportunity for the United States to conduct an attack against Iran simultaneously with the riots happening on the ground, whereas Trump probably had other calculations that they might actually increase even further. And only then the United States would go and participate with them. That did not happen. Israel was very disappointed. The so-called hawks in the American administration were also very upset. But they didn't lose hope. And they didn't lose hope for a good reason. The United States still has the largest deployment since 2003 in the region, before the Iraq war. And this deployment that costs the American taxpayer a lot of money, not just a few dollars, a lot of money, isn't there without a solid reason. The United States is interested in attacking Iran, and Israel is interested in the United States attacking Iran, whether with Israel or without Israel. And now the statements that are coming from officials close to Trump who are more on the Israeli side are talking about the fact that there will be no other option to attack Iran in the future ever if they miss this opportunity now, which is the same sentiment that Netanyahu has and certain circles within Israel, even some of those who oppose Benjamin Netanyahu. But Netanyahu primarily, because from his perspective, it's a crucial moment. Israel is due to have elections in October. Netanyahu isn't doing very well. He is delaying all of the prospects of a proper phase 2 solution and the reconstruction inside of Gaza for his own political purposes, because if there was more aid going in, if there was more development, then people would say, well, what are you bringing on us? That's why he doesn't want to do any of that up until he guarantees a second term. And this is the only way that he is able to maintain his current coalition and not attract more criticism from within, or not push for someone to get out of the government in such a sensitive moment now. So Netanyahu still wants that very heavily. And the United States delay leads Benjamin Netanyahu to start using other forms of leverage, apart from the Epstein files. Because it's obvious to anyone that the Epstein files have been used against Donald Trump. Every time Donald Trump made a peaceful statement or a less hostile statement or a statement of peace, of reconciliation, there were Epstein files being released, and Donald Trump did a U-turn, a literal U-turn. From Gaza, it was from stopping the war to we're gonna open the gates of hell multiple times. From an Iranian perspective, it went from if we have a deal, good. If we don't have a deal, I guess that's okay too. To they need to surrender, and endorsing Israel's attack, participating with that attack, as theatrical as it may be, then leading to more hostile actions, and then simultaneously with the third or fourth round of the release of the Epstein files, we have this huge deployment off the shores of Iran for the United States, with another aircraft carrier on the way, going to occupied Palestine, potentially to protect the genocide state should they begin an attack, or to continue later on to the Gulf of Aden and then to Iran to participate with USS Abraham Lincoln in an attack against Iran. All of this is showing that Israel, with Benjamin Netanyahu, are not only pushing for a more hostile position against Iran, an all-out war against Iran, but they are also viewing other options that they can take so that they can use as leverage against Donald Trump and the United States administration and try and accelerate an attack against Iran. Now, that's not the only thing. Tucker Carlson had an interview with Mike Huckabee. We've been speaking about this in the past couple of days because Mike Huckabee, in effect, said that Israel has a right to take over the whole of the Middle East or West Asia. that led to a widespread condemnation, outright condemnation, and condemnations in diplomatic terms are not very common with America's allies from the Arab and Muslim states, but it began with a harsh statement from Saudi Arabia, a condemnation from Egypt, then a joint condemnation by the Muslim League and the Arab states and the Gulf states towards these statements that came from Mike Huckabee. Now, Tucker Carlson is not only saying that he had this interview and he was, criticizing Mike Huckabee, he's actually saying that Netanyahu threatened his family. Israel targeted his family. Netanyahu believes in blood guilt. And Israel, according to him, he's questioning Israel's right to exist. Now, the Israelis are saying that he launched unsubstantiated claims echoing anti-Semitic tropes, falsely saying Herzog visited Epstein Island. And they're saying that that was an AI-generated image of the Israeli president, Yitzhak Herzog. However, Herzog was mentioned in the files, according to some revelations that we actually saw. But notice how quick they are to start literally using the anti-Semitism card. Using the anti-Semitism card against Tucker Carlson because he said that he criticized Mike Huckabee, and he said that Netanyahu threatened his family. Is it likely that Benjamin Netanyahu tried to threaten Tucker Carlson or his family? And would they go to that extent? Are they that pathetic? And the fact of the matter is 100%. Firstly, in one of the Jewish conferences in the United States, a Zionist Jewish conference, they had this orchestrated protest saying that, raising banners saying like Tucker is not MAGA and all of that. Their mouthpieces in the United States are trying to delegitimize Tucker Carlson. Again, regardless of what you think of Tucker Carlson, by the way, some people say he's a CIA asset because his dad was, and there are certain limits he doesn't reach. You got all of that. Doesn't matter what you think of him. But he has been critical of Israel. He was talking about the atrocities. He actually visited some of the casualties, the wounded from Gaza when he was in Qatar as well. Israel lost its mind again and called that visit anti-Semitic too, because he simply went and visited people who were wounded, children and maimed children and men and women. So they have this campaign through their mouthpieces, orchestrated campaign through the big Zionist mouths in the United States, bots, what have you, their typical campaigns. And then they're also trying to support the opposing side as much as possible. When Netanyahu was meeting with these influencers in the United States, in what looked more of a class rather than any sort of meeting. He said class. And what's important and what's the next move? TikTok, we have it. The next is X, speaking with Elon and what have you. Because they're not happy about the fact that someone can still criticize Israel on any platform. Then, we had revelations. Firstly, Charlie Kirk, another man who was an apologist for genocide, who was ignoring the brutal slaughter of infants in Gaza, and a staunch pro-Zionist, who started to ask questions. He was assassinated in broad daylight. Multiple figures who started to oppose Israel spoke about death threats, actual death threats. Many of them faced assassination attempts. This is a pattern that Israel uses, and they always try to bring about a group of people, whether it's in the, if there's a voice in the Republican Party, for example, or every AIPAC supported a congressman or what have you, to start attacking them, delegitimize them, and then use anything in their power to try and silence them, whether through money, whether through communication, whether through a handler. You know, many of these people have handlers. Like you heard the revelation of, was it Thomas Massey at the time, who said that every one of them has an AIPAC handler. I'm not sure if it was Thomas Massey or someone else who, from the Republican side in the United States. They have a handler, an AIPAC handler, to tell them kind of what to do, what not to do, how to vote when it comes to Israel. And in case they are absent, they can go like Randy Fine and start pressing the buttons. All of this is weakness, because when you start being afraid of criticism, when you start being reluctant, when you start showing paranoia, and that is the most accurate description of what Israel is seeing now, paranoia from anyone changing their mind, paranoia from criticism. And by the way, some of these people didn't, for example, delegitimize Israel as a country. So they didn't necessarily say Israel doesn't have a right to exist as an apartheid state or as a Jewish supremacy. Many of them say we just don't want to have anything to do with you. Why should we focus on you when we can focus on our things at home? So from their side, the Israeli side, they don't even want to have anyone criticizing them. Like recently, the very handsome Randy Fine said that he was asked if it was okay to criticize the Israeli government. He said, in essence, it's okay, but if you criticize the state of Israel in a way that you don't criticize any other country, then that's anti-Semitic. You see, they want to label you somehow. They want to try and use that in any way, shape, or form. At least try and keep it relevant, because it lost its relevance. It did lose its relevance with many people. It might still hold some relevance with some people who are still slightly misinformed or who don't really follow what's happening. But they're trying to continue with that and label people like Tucker Carlson as an anti-Semite, simply for criticizing Israel. And again, despite the flawed terminology, again, we must constantly reiterate that. Anti-Semitism is a modern term that is maliciously used to tie the Jewish people to a land and therefore criminalize the criticism of the land because it's labeled as against the Jews, when really and truly they can't prove any link to Semitism whatsoever. And the real term, if we're talking about bigotry or hate or whatever it is, or discrimination, anti-Jewish hate or anti-any other religion hate, if we're talking about that. But in the case of Zionism, they're trying to actually increase anti-Jewish hate, label it as anti-Semitism, and exploit it with this constant victimhood act that they use simultaneously when they are perpetrating the ugliest, most barbaric acts history has ever seen, and being proudly Jewish about it in a very Jewish way. And they're doing that so that they can have more criticism, against them and show the world Jewry that, look, they hate the Jews. They don't just hate the Zionists, they hate the Jewish people. It's not just against the state of Israel. All of you are not safe anyway. And what they're doing by that is trying to hide the fact that the most unsafe, the most dangerous place in the world for Jewish people is in Israel. It's the only place where they're used as cannon fodder. It's the only place where their lives are the cheapest, alongside many other things. But of course, Zionism built its whole ideology and existence on that. And they're trying to maintain it as much as possible. And whenever there's a certain attack against them, criticizing them, or even showing legitimate concern, whatever it is, they start to label them, to try and demonize them, and get them out of the picture. And these are the main things that I wanted to share with you. I'll open the space up for some community participation, take a few comments or questions from the chat, and if you mind highlighting any comments that you have. And welcome everyone to another live stream. Shockwave Truth, thank you so much for your super. And let's go to the beginning of the chat. Marvin, do you think an attack will come from Azerbaijan by Israel, US, and US base there? Well, the United States has connections with Azerbaijan. I'm not sure about bases, to be honest with you. And there might be something happening from there, either directly and with knowledge from the authorities, or without that. And yeah, there is no permanent military base in Azerbaijan, but they just do have, of course, good ties with them. Because in the recent war that took place between Iran and Israel, there were reported attacks from Azerbaijan. But those attacks could have been without the knowledge of the authorities, similar to what happened inside of Iran. There were attacks without the knowledge of the authorities. And they started to try and counter those terror moves internally, successfully. And from Azerbaijan, that could have been the same thing. Because still, Azerbaijan has good ties with Iran. It's not that they have a good connection with them. But they also have ties with Israel and the United States. However, putting themselves in a position where they would be used as a hub for an attack would put them in a very vulnerable position with Iran. Because that region is historically part of Persia, by the way. Iran still has a province called the East Azerbaijan province. A lot of those territories were under the historical Persia. So there are deep connections, and Iran would have leverage if something would happen like that. And I don't necessarily think it would be the main hub, if you ask me. I think the United States is much more well-equipped and prepared in other Arab countries who declared that they said that they're not going to allow the United States to be used. Their bases of the United States to be used. And Surkal, will US bases in Turkey be used? I also very highly doubt so. Turkey, let's not forget that in 2003, they didn't allow the United States and NATO to use bases in Turkey to attack Iraq, let alone Iran, when they're trying to prevent, when they are probably the biggest side trying to prevent an attack against them. Jordan might be a hub simply because of their weaker general geopolitical position and leverage, and because we do have a precedent there, at least not a public one, you know, in terms of attack, but in terms of defense, yes, they did, and it was very visible at the time. The Iranian missiles were being intercepted inside of Jordan and landing on the Jordanian people. So they might be used against Iran. And Kat, thank you so much for your super, much appreciated. And Shockwave Truth, you also said the 3 ship will go to Med to block Turkey from helping MBS. Block Turkey from helping MBS. I'm not sure if that would be the case, because Saudi Arabia isn't necessarily going to be a part of this. They don't want it to happen. That's their official position. But if all hell breaks loose, then there would be some sort of moves happening, right? Including from countries that we didn't really expect from. And Ahmed also, he said, what's the deal with Jordan? I hope I clarified with their weak leverage and the fact that they already have been participating in intercepting Iranian missiles. Jordan relies heavily on aid from the United States of America. They couldn't even use their status quo rights, if that's the most accurate term, with the West Bank and Jerusalem. You know, they're supposed to have custody over Al-Aqsa, Jordan. But what happened? Israel does whatever it wants, and it constantly tries to shift the status quo. Therefore, they're in a very weak position. That's not to justify, of course, their position at all, but that's just to kind of explain why their position is like that. Gullyburg, Mahmoud Katz has been suspiciously quiet, or is it just me not seeing anything from him? Yeah, I actually haven't seen too many things from him. Probably because of certain agreements that Israel might have had with the United States. He was like Netanyahu's barking dog. He's a man put there by Netanyahu, supposedly the defense minister of Israel, without adequate background to become the defense minister, a position usually reserved to people who held the position of the IDF chief of staff in general in Israel. But that was another move to consolidate power for Benjamin Netanyahu. He wanted a yes man, and he had his poodle. And whenever he wanted him to do something, he would bark. Don't forget, this man told Iran during the 12-day war that from now on, we will be attacking anywhere we want in Iran at any given moment. We're setting a new reality. What happened? They started to beg Trump to help them get out of this mess. And they begged for a ceasefire with their tails between their legs. And it was unilaterally declared, by the way. There were no written agreements. There was no document. Iran just said, if you stop attacking us, we'll stop attacking you. So maybe he was barking too much, and Netanyahu wanted to quieten him down. The Alchemist, thank you, Mahmoud. I feel like we're at the end. If they attack Iran, that's it. Have you read Pike's letter to Mazzini? No, I actually haven't. Enlighten me. What was it about? Albert Pike to Mazzini, conspiracy on 3 world wars. Ah. Oh, yeah, I heard something about that. Not the full thing, though. Is it this one? The Third World War must be fomented, taking advantage of differences caused by the agentur of the Illuminati between political Zionists and the leaders of the Islamic world, such a way that Islam and political Zionism mutually destroy each other. Meanwhile, other nations, once more divided on this issue, will be constrained to fight to the point of complete physical, moral, spiritual, economic exhaustion. Unleash the nihilists and the atheists, which shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm, which in all its horror will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism, origin of savagery, and the most bloody turmoil. Yeah, I mean, listen, there are, many theories about how it would actually work. And it's inevitably not going to be good if it is going to happen. No war is, these things are not good. But the problem that we have is that people benefit from them. I think that is the biggest problem. People are benefiting from these wars, making money, and that is a huge problem. And so long as that's the case, they're going to continue to happen. Like the United States is preparing heavily now, and they're continuing to deploy even more bombers. And now Gerald Ford is in the Mediterranean. All of that is very problematic. Splatted, I was watching another YouTuber. Have you heard that 1/3 of the active IDF force are dual multi-citizens, meaning 50,000 soldiers were recruited from outside of Israel? Yeah, and they are the dual nationals because they have an Israeli nationality and another nationality. So there were stats being released not long ago about the background of nationalities coming in the IDF. How many of them? The majority of them are from the United States of America, 12,000 approximately. And then we have France, we have Germany, other European countries, other countries in general too. And that's not surprising because of the level of course, dual nationals. Let me see if I can find the actual list. Yes, this one. So the top 5 countries are the United States, France, Russia, Germany, and Ukraine. although I heard that there were approximately 2,000 British. And they can do whatever they want, you know? They can kill children and go back to their countries. Cooking history, Mahmoud, how big will the impact be on the world in terms of economy and quality of life if Iran is attacked? Will it be limited to the region, or will all countries be affected? Well, economically speaking, the Hormuz Strait exports, or from the Hormuz Strait, there are approximately 20 to 30% of the global oil and gas goes from that region. So there will inevitably be a hike in prices in your fuel, for example, and energy. And that will be global, and it will differ from one country to another based on their imports, where they're importing from primarily. So there will be an impact, like there was an impact after the war, the US, UK, NATO war in the hands of Zelensky against Russia, or with Russia. Because let's not forget, Zelensky had a deal with them. Then Boris Johnson told him, no, go to war, we'll help you. And now he killed so many young Ukrainians, Zelensky, that he is forcing over 60-year-olds to go and die for the sake of the military-industrial complex. And of course, that was there was this artificially generated sympathy coming from the top down, government. They'll start raising the Ukrainian flags, not out of sympathy for the Ukrainian people. We all have sympathy with the Ukrainian people and with the Russian people, anyone innocent. But out of sympathy to the pockets of the elite benefiting from the death and destruction and the campaign going on there. And the people were like, yeah, okay. And who paid the price? The people paid the price. Electricity prices rose, energy prices spiked up. Why? Because Russia was one of the main suppliers to Europe. But they want to go to war with them. The United States went and bombed one of the Nord Streams from Russia to Germany. That was supposed to reduce the energy costs for Europe. And they went and did the opposite. So who benefited? Russia told Germany recently that we're willing to reactivate the other Nord Stream pipe, and you'll have a reduction in prices. Whereas in Russia, the ruble went up. It was doing pretty well. They were fine. And Europe was suffering as a result of this move coming primarily from the United States and the UK, but later on that NATO in general endorsed, with some, of course, reservations from multiple countries, to a level where now there is even more criticism. Similar things will happen with Iran, but at a more global scale. But it could be multiplied if both China and Russia participate, and it expands beyond the Persian Gulf and Iran, and then we can start talking about other things too. And more economic problems. Liniana Mahmoud, do you think that groups like Hezbollah will try a land invasion of the colony if Iran manages to take out its defenses and surveillance? Oh yeah, that's a good possibility. Israel likes to portray it as if, business as usual, but really and truly, with Hezbollah, it wasn't just an edge of what can happen between the two. They still have capacity to do that, but that wouldn't necessarily be the first thing on their priority list. Although, again, I might be wrong. They could be preparing something like that. But it would also be have to do with Iraq, too, and Yemen. The Alchemist, my father was with PDKI, and through contacts, we heard the United States supplied them with heavy weapons to enter Iran from the West. For your information, I don't support them. Oh, yeah, that's well known. And the United States and Israel, in some cases, do that. And they don't do that for, again, the benefit of anyone apart from themselves. It's not for the benefit of the Kurds, or that's all the divide and rule policy here. And we saw what happened in Syria. So Israel uses, and the United States, the historical injustice that the Kurdish population faced as part of the greater injustice that the whole people of the region faced because of the Sykes-Picot Agreement. But what some of the, and of course some of the groups and movements, they benefit too because they get the money. So the way they're seeing it, okay, a foreign country is giving me money to fight Iran or Iraq or Syria. See, it's not the people benefiting. So they do that, but when they don't need that anymore, if they have a different policy, they'll ditch them. Like they did with many Palestinians too. And Goldson, thank you very much. Hello from A2 Michigan. Greetings to everyone listening and watching from Michigan. And thank you so much for your super, much appreciated. Matlas X, Ian Puddick said that a few days ago that he had gotten the word that the Israelis and US are considering using a tactical nuke on an Iranian military base, probably with the belief that a limited nuke is okay. I personally think that a nuclear bomb is possible. Listen, Israel targeted Lebanon with chemical weapons. They used illegal weapons in Gaza a long time ago and now again. The United States used illegal weapons in Iraq. People still suffer from them to this day. That might not necessarily be the first thing that they would do, but that would still be a very strong possibility. Because they would probably want to send a strong message from the beginning, assuming that Donald Trump is really interested in going on all-out attack. But then again, you know, that would be very problematic because it could lead to other outcomes as well. John as well, thank you. Did you read the book I emailed you? If so, thought. Could you please tell me what was the name of that book, if you wouldn't mind, so I can have a look for you. And thank you again. Musa Hana, can you please speak and give your views on Imran Khan? Yeah, of course. I think Imran Khan had very good qualities, in my opinion. I think many of his positions were good internally for the Pakistani people and from an international perspective as well. I think he has a lot of support, both internally and externally. And it's a shame that some of these countries still resort to these tactics that undermine the will of the people. The people elected him. So I think there needs to be a huge reform, not only in Pakistan, but in other countries, other Muslim and Arab countries too, where the will of the people is represented properly. And I heard that now he is in bad health too, in prison. And these things should really be eliminated, because really and truly it just sets bad moves for the future. It sets the law of the jungle, really. Anyone who has the power can just come up with a coup. And that's very problematic. Alan Marwin, thank you as well. Thank you, Mahmoud. Your analysis and first information are essential to understanding the pace of events. Thank you so much, my dear friend Alan. Raihan, happy Ramadan, my brother, to you too, and everyone celebrating too. May Allah make it easier for all of us. Ameen. Grobiful, if you use a nuke, you cannot access that area for a very long time. That's true. And that's why I think it will be kind of the last option. Unless they're not interested in that place. Unless it's like just a place where they feel like there's a threat coming from there. It's not land-based or what have you. I think that if it would be a base, for example, they might do it. If it's land, then, well, how are they going to get Pahlavi back? What is he going to rule exactly? Okay, guys, we'll wrap it up here. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in to another live stream. Everyone who participated in the chat, thank you for everyone who sent supers. Alan, Matlas, John, Golden Sun, The Alchemist, Marvin, Shockwave, Cat, and everyone else who participated in the chat. I'll hopefully be with you with several more videos this evening, at least one. And tomorrow with either a live stream or videos, you know. For anyone new, of course, to the channel, with the live streams, they're not always there on a daily basis. And when there is no live stream, there's usually a video or two or more. So that's why there is no specific like set time. And sometimes they'll be earlier, sometimes they'll be later on, because you know, some of you asked me, you know, what time is the live stream exactly? So it will vary. Usually, of course, it's in the evening time or late at night, and it depends if something, you know, comes and pops up very late. We'll have a live stream too. So just keep an eye, because I usually publish them just before we begin the live stream. That's apart from my videos too. Also, make sure with the subscription that you always check the subscription, because I had a couple of people complaining about being unsubscribed for some reason. like those strange audio glitches yesterday. So just make sure you have your subscription on and make sure you have your notification on as well. If you haven't done so already, make sure you subscribe to NewsV Pro as well to get the full verified news and also generate podcasts that you like based on your interests. And visit our shop for any merch for all of you who like shirts or caps, and support the channel through the links below. In the meantime, everyone, thank you again for tuning in. Stay blessed, take care, and I will see you soon in the next video. Peace, everyone. Salam.